What would you do if you learned the family you thought you belonged to was never truly yours? Emily always knew Lily was meant to be her daughter, but her adoptive family never fully accepted her. At Jessica's wedding, things came to a head when Emily discovered the shocking truth about her own identity, a truth hidden for 35 years. A man named David Vernon, her biological father, stepped forward to reveal everything. Now, Emily must navigate her newfound family while protecting Lily from the harsh judgments of those who never accepted them. Stay tuned to see how Emily takes control of her life, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories. "Mom, look at my new dress!" Lily, my 8-year-old daughter, exclaimed, spinning in her pink flower girl dress. Her eyes shone with excitement. She was over the moon to be a part of Aunt Jessica's wedding. "You look absolutely beautiful, sweetheart," I said with a soft smile, though a tight knot formed in my chest. Lily was adopted, and even though she was my entire world, my family had never fully embraced her. My name is Emily. I'm 35, and I became a single mother by choice. 5 years ago, when I first met Lily at the orphanage, I knew, without a doubt, that we were meant to be a family. But my parents, and my sister Jessica, had never shared that same excitement. "A Chinese girl," Jessica had sneered once, her voice dripping with contempt. "Couldn't you at least adopt someone who looks a little more like us?" "Lily is Korean," I corrected, for what felt like the 1,000th time, "and she's perfect just the way she is." Jessica's wedding was drawing near, and the only reason Lily and I had even received an invitation was because our mother had insisted. Jessica was marrying Michael, the son of one of the wealthiest businessmen in the city. The day before the wedding, during the rehearsal, I sensed something was off. The bridesmaids exchanged glances, their whispers laced with judgment, their eyes flicking over to Lily. "Jessica," I said, pulling my sister aside during a break, lowering my voice. "Is everything okay?" She barely spared me a glance. "Michael's parents are concerned," she muttered dismissively. "They think an adopted Asian girl will ruin the family photos." I stood frozen, unable to process her words. "Excuse me?" She sighed as though the conversation was beneath her. "Look, Emily, it's bad enough that you've always been different." A cold shiver ran down my spine. "Different? What do you mean?" Jessica turned to face me, her eyes narrowing with something sharp and cruel. "Oh, come on. Everyone knows you don't look like anyone in our family. Mom and Dad have always felt uncomfortable about it." Her words struck me like a blow. It was true. I never quite resembled anyone else in the family. My skin was darker, my hair curlier, but I had always convinced myself it was just a result of recessive genes. "You're being ridiculous," I said, my voice shaky. She crossed her arms, her expression dismissive. "Whatever. Just keep your adopted daughter out of the way tomorrow." That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me with wide, troubled eyes. "Mom, why doesn't Aunt Jessica like me?" I pulled her close, hugging her tightly. "Oh, sweetheart, some people just don't know how to see how special you are. The other girl said I'm not a real cousin because I'm adopted." My blood boiled, but I forced myself to stay calm for Lily's sake. "Family isn't about blood, baby. It's about love." The next morning, we arrived early at the church. Lily was glowing in her dress, tossing flower petals as she practiced her role. But everything shattered during the pre-ceremony photos. "The adopted girl can't be in the family pictures," Michael's mother suddenly declared. Lily's face dropped. "But I'm the flower girl," she protested, tears beginning to gather in her eyes. Jessica's voice was ice cold. "You're not part of this family. Neither of you are." I felt Lily stiffen in my arms, my heart hammering in my chest. "What do you mean?" I demanded, my voice trembling with fury. Jessica turned to our parents, a twisted smile creeping onto her lips. "Mom, Dad, tell her the truth already." My parents paled, their faces stricken with guilt. Then, my mother began to cry. "Emily!" my father began, but before he could continue, a deep voice echoed from the entrance of the church. "He's right. You were never part of this family." Everyone turned. A tall man, around 60, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, stood at the door. His face, It was like looking at a masculine version of my own. "Who are you?" Jessica demanded, her voice sharp with irritation. The man smiled slightly, but his piercing gaze was locked on me. "My name is David Vernon, and Emily is my daughter." A stunned silence filled the church. My mother swayed on her feet before collapsing in a dead faint, while my father, the man I had believed to be my father, went pale as a ghost. "This is ridiculous!" Jessica shrieked, her voice rising in hysteria. "You're ruining my wedding!" But David Vernon remained calm. He strode toward us, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "I have DNA test results, legal documents, and the full story they've hidden from you for 30 years." Lily squeezed my hand, her small fingers gripping mine tightly. "Mom, who is that man?" she whispered. Before I could answer, my mother, now fully conscious, let out a strangled cry. "You have no right to be here!" she screamed. "We had a deal!" David's expression hardened. "The deal," he said coldly, "was that I would stay away until Emily turned 35. She had a birthday last week." My mind was spinning. "Deal? What deal? What are you talking about?" "Perhaps we should discuss this in private," David suggested. "No!" Jessica snapped. "This is my wedding. I want you and your so-called daughter to leave now." David turned his gaze on her, and for the first time, I saw real fear in my sister's eyes. "Miss," he said evenly, "I am the CEO of Vernon International. Your future father-in-law works for me. Are you sure you want me to leave?" Michael's parents turned deathly pale. You're David Vernon?" Michael's mother whispered in shock. David ignored them and looked back at me. "Emily," he said gently, "I know this is overwhelming, but your biological mother, my late wife Sophia, would have wanted you to know the truth today." My heart pounded. "I don't want to hear any of this," I said, my voice shaking. I scooped Lily into my arms. "Let's go, sweetheart." "Wait." David pulled out a worn photograph from his wallet and held it out to me. "Just look at this." I hesitated, then took it. The image was of a breathtaking woman with the same curly hair and warm brown skin that I remembered mine. She was holding a baby. My breath caught. It was like looking in a mirror. "Your mother died just hours after giving birth to you," David explained, his voice heavy with sorrow. I was shattered. "I made the mistake of trusting your nanny, the woman you now call your mother. She offered to raise you as her own. I was drowning in grief. I signed the papers. It was for the best." My adoptive mother cried, "You were a mess, drinking yourself into oblivion." David's eyes burned with fury. "So you stole my daughter? You erased every trace of Sophia from her life." The church filled with hushed murmurs. The wedding had turned into a full-blown scandal. Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Mommy, he's like us, isn't he?" she whispered. "He was looking for you, just like you looked for me." Her words hit me like a revelation. I turned to the family that had raised me, the family that had always made me feel like an outsider. Then I looked at David, whose eyes mirrored mine, whose skin matched mine. I exhaled sharply. "Let's go." Jessica let out a bitter laugh. "Of course. Just run away. You and your little charity case never belonged here anyway." "Audie," I turned to her one last time, my voice steady. "You're right, Jessica. I was never part of this family." I glanced at Lily and smiled, and I am so grateful for that. David took us to a private restaurant where Lily immediately warmed up to him. She was full of curiosity, peppering him with questions between bites of her ice cream. "So, does this mean you're my grandpa?" she asked, her big eyes sparkling with excitement. David chuckled, glancing at me for permission. "If your mother allows it, I would love to be your grandfather." I took a deep breath. "I need to know everything," I said at last, "from the very beginning." David nodded, pulling a leather-bound photo album from his briefcase. "Your mother, Sophia, was an architect," he began. "We met when her firm was hired to design the headquarters of my company. It was love at first sight." I flipped through the pages, my eyes tracing pictures of a couple so full of life. traveling the world, building their future together. They looked so happy, so in love. And when she got pregnant with you, it felt like the pinnacle of our happiness. David's voice faltered as he continued, thick with emotion. But there were complications during childbirth. He swallowed hard, his usually composed demeanor cracking. The doctors, they could only save one of you. My fingers trembled as I traced my mother's face in a hospital photo. She held a newborn baby in her arms, gazing down at me with such tenderness, pure love shining in her eyes. She chose you. Tears slid down my cheeks. I fell apart after she died, David confessed, his voice breaking. I was lost, and in my grief, Margaret, your nanny, the woman you've called Mom all these years, took advantage of my vulnerability. She convinced me I was incapable of raising you, that you needed a real family. Margaret already had a daughter, but couldn't have any more children. She told me that what she really wanted was to give Jessica someone to grow up with, someone to fill the empty space left by the siblings she would never have. She said you needed a family and Jessica needed a companion. I was so consumed by my grief that I couldn't see the truth. I trusted her, and I let her convince me that this was the right thing to do. I clenched my fists. Why did you wait so long? The legal agreement I signed in my moment of weakness. It stated I couldn't contact you until you turned 35, he said bitterly. For the last 34.5 years, I've been gathering evidence, building a case, but most of all, watching over you from a distance. A cold shiver ran down my spine. You watched me? David nodded solemnly. I was at your college graduation, sitting in the last row. When you adopted Lily, I hired private investigators to make sure you were both safe. And when you opened your bookstore, I was your first customer, though you never recognized me. Lily gasped. Wait, the man with the sunglasses who buys books every month? David smiled, a touch of sadness in his eyes. That was me. I couldn't be a part of your life, but I needed to be in it somehow. My mind raced as the pieces of my life began to fall into place. It all made sense now. Wait a minute, I murmured, the memory surfacing. The loan for the bookstore. The bank approved it so quickly. David gave a guilty nod. Your business plan was solid, but I may have pulled a few strings. My phone buzzed incessantly, dozens of calls and messages from my adoptive family. I ignored them. What happens now? I asked, my voice steady. David leaned back in his chair. That's up to you, he said, his voice gentle but firm. Legally, you are my heir. Vernon International will be yours one day. But more than that, I want the chance to be your father and Lily's grandfather. Do I need to decide now? Of course not. Take all the time you need. He hesitated, then reached into his briefcase again. His fingers lingered for a moment before pulling out another envelope. His voice softened, almost reverent. Your mother left this for you, he said, his tone laced with both regret and affection. She gave it to me before you were born. She told me that sometimes she couldn't see the future clearly. She was afraid that she might not be there for you, afraid she wouldn't be enough. She told me it was just her own fear getting the best of her, but she wanted to be sure, just in case. David's hands shook slightly as he continued, his voice cracking under the weight of the memories. I remember how she looked at me, almost pleading. She told me that if anything ever happened to her, she wanted you to have this. I told her I might not be able to do it alone, that I might make mistakes trying to raise you by myself. I feared I wouldn't be enough, and that terrified me. Terrified me that I wouldn't know how to love you the way she would have. He paused, closing his eyes for a moment to gather his thoughts. I wanted to promise her everything, to raise you the way she would have, but I didn't know how. The fear of failing you, of not being what you needed, of not being enough. It haunted me. His voice softened, a whisper now. But I made her that promise anyway, because even though I was afraid, I knew I had to try. I couldn't let her down. And now I'm here, doing my best, trying to live up to the man she believed I could be, even when I doubted myself. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. The paper inside was slightly aged. The ink, the letter, slightly faded, but the words, still strong, carried the depth of a mother's love. My dearest Emily, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. I pray that I am wrong, that you never had to see this letter, that I lived to watch you grow into the incredible person I know you will become. But there were moments, in the quiet spaces, when I couldn't shake the feeling that my time might be shorter than I wanted. And if that's the case, I need you to know this. Every second I spent with you, from the moment I knew you were inside me, was the greatest joy of my life. Your father is a good man. I know he loves you, though sometimes it takes him time to find his way back to you. Please forgive him for the distance, for the silence that stretched between you. Love, when it is real, doesn't always know how to speak. It becomes tangled in itself, lost in the spaces where it doesn't know how to reach. True love makes us do foolish things, but his love for me, for you, was always real. As my final wish, I want you to have something that is a piece of me, a place where you were meant to grow. The first house I ever designed, the place you were born. It is yours now. Live a full life there, Emily. Fill it with love, with laughter, with memories, and never, not for a second, doubt that you were loved beyond words. With eternal love, love, Mom. Inside the envelope was a key, cold and solid in my hand, followed by another piece of paper, its weight somehow heavier than it should have been. The deed to the house. David's voice cracked with emotion as he spoke. "This is where Sophia and I dreamed of raising you," he said. "I've kept it exactly as she left it, waiting for the day you would finally come home." A week later, Lily and I moved in. David helped us transition, giving us space, but always making sure we knew he was there when we needed him. For the first time in my life, I felt like I truly belonged. My adoptive family tried to reach out in the days after the wedding, missed calls, unread messages, voicemails filled with demands, guilt trips, and desperate pleas. I ignored them all. But Jessica? She wasn't going to let it go that easily. One afternoon, as I was restocking shelves at the bookstore, the door slammed open with the sharp chime of the bell. Jessica marched in, her heels clicking loudly on the hardwood floor, her expression a blend of frustration and barely controlled rage. "You owe me an explanation," she snapped, storming up to the counter. I didn't even look up from the books I was sorting. "For what exactly?" "For ruining my wedding," she spat, slamming her hands down on the counter. I raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "The wedding still happened, didn't it?" Jessica's mouth tightened into a thin line. "Yes," she admitted bitterly, "but not the way it was supposed to. Michael's parents are furious. Do you have any idea what you've done? They lost major business contracts with Vernon International. They're blaming me for all of it." I sighed and placed another book on the shelf. "That's not my problem." Her eyes sparked with fury. "You were my sister!" That made me pause. I finally looked up at her, my voice steady and calm. "No, Jessica, you never let me be." For a moment, her expression faltered, but pride held her back from admitting the truth. Instead, she scoffed, spun on her heel, and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I watched her go, feeling nothing. For the first time in my life, I was free from their expectations, their judgment, their conditions for love, and I didn't regret it. 6 months later, life had settled into a rhythm I never thought possible. Lily had blossomed in ways I never imagined. She adored her grandfather. David picked her up from piano lessons, helped her with her homework, and spoiled her without reservation. Just the other day, he brought home a grand piano, declaring it a necessary investment in her musical talent. "Grandpa, it's huge!" Lily gasped, her eyes wide as she ran her fingers over the keys. "You can't expect a true musician to practice on anything less," David said with a playful grin, ruffling her hair. Their bond was effortless, natural, as though they had always known each other. As for David and me, we were learning about each other, step by step. We met for coffee, dinners, and long walks where he shared stories about Sophia, the mother I never got to know. Through his words, I could almost see her, a brilliant, driven woman who loved sketching on napkins in cafes, who always smelled faintly of cedarwood and jasmine, who hummed softly under her breath when she worked, lost in her designs. She was real. Not just a name on my birth certificate, not just a face in a faded photograph. She lived, she loved, and she gave her life for me. The house she designed, the one she never got to raise me in, had become our home. At night, when the world was quiet, I ran my fingers over the carved wooden banisters, the delicate arches, the thoughtful little details she had poured her soul into. She built this house for us, for me, and now for Lily. Framed photographs lined the walls, telling our story. Sophia holding her newborn daughter, me years later holding Lily in my arms, and now Lily laughing with her grandfather. 3 generations forever bound together. Sometimes the family we choose, the family that chooses us, becomes more real than the one we were given. Lily taught me that when I adopted her, and now, reconnecting with my father, I understand it completely. As Lily often says, love makes a family. After 35 years, I finally know exactly what that means. What do you do when the family you've tried so hard to belong to finally reveals that you were never truly part of it? Do you keep trying to fit in, or do you embrace the truth and move forward with your own family, your own legacy? For Emily, the moment of truth came at her sister Jessica's wedding. After years of feeling like an outsider in her own family, Emily's world was rocked when a man named David Vernon walked into the church, revealing that he was her biological father and that the family she had known had been hiding the truth for 35 years. The revelation turned the wedding into a scandal, but it also set Emily on a new path, one where she finally understood her worth and her place in the world. What Emily didn't expect was that reconnecting with David would be the beginning of healing, not just for her, but for Lily, her adopted daughter. Together, they found a new family, built on love, acceptance, and truth. Emily realized that sometimes the family you create is more powerful than the one you were born into. So, what do you think? If you were Emily, how would you have handled the revelation? Would you have embraced the truth or tried to hold on to the family that rejected you? Let's talk about it in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more heartfelt stories.